are getting right to the latest and greatest in so many things here at NACAC 2022. And fresh off the print. Do people still say fresh off the print?
They do.
Here we go. We have the Black Family's Guide to College Admissions. Was literally just released 2 weeks ago, September 6th. Congratulations. I have the authors here with me, Tim and Shereem. Congratulations on this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is, first of all, tell me a little bit about how this book came to be. How did you guys get together?
So 10 years ago at NACAC. So 10 years ago at NACAC, we've both been in the profession over 25 years. We have a mutual friend. And, as we do at NACAC, lots of receptions. We would hang out at receptions. So Marie says, hey, Tim, I want you to meet Shereem. Shereem, meet Tim. And then ever since then, we've maintained contact. And then about, 2 years ago, as the country is going through the racial awakening with George Floyd and everything, Shereem contacted me. He would say hesitantly, because if he contacted me, then we had to write the book. Just, kind of dealing with kind of some of the, undermatching and certain things that were going on in college counseling, especially for Black families. And we, knew that there was an information gap, how families went about getting that information. And so we said, we wanted to put something together. So for 2 years, as we, everybody was, dealing with COVID, we were kind of tucked away, writing, working, and we think we put out something good. It's just a conversation. Here at NACAC, there are professionals with experiences, and we just want to be part of that conversation. And this is just a collection of all of our work in addition to the colleagues that we have in the profession.
We've been talking a lot about diversity, especially with NACAC being in Houston this year. Houston is one of the most diverse cities in America, and just any way that we can open the door, continue having these conversations. Talk to me a little bit about why a book like this, why these conversations are so important and needed.
I think it's important to recognize that Black families and Black students particularly have so many choices in the college admissions process, given historically Black college universities, predominantly white institutions, and maybe they're not talked about enough in tandem. Right? So a lot of students whose parents may have gone to HBCUs want their kids oftentimes to go to HBCUs. A lot of, particularly where I'm from in the North, a lot of families don't know about HBCUs. So we kind of felt like it was necessary to facilitate a conversation where Black families and educators of Black children can have more dialogue about what's important to these families as they approach this process. So we're being very intentional about having a conversation about education, parenting, and race, because like you said, diversity can mean many, many things. Black people are not a monolith. They shouldn't go to one kind of school or the other. So we want to make sure that we just gave our offering, our contribution to, the college admissions canon about what Black families, at least the ones that we spoke to, consider to be critical points of the process.
And I know, Tim, you brought up the George Floyd and the protests and things that have been happening more recently. Have you seen the conversation changing since that time? And what kind of feedback have you been hearing from other counselors and admission professionals?
Yeah, we talk about in the book kind of the renaissance of HBCUs. So since then there's been a lot of attention that has been gleaned on historically Black colleges and universities, and they've been around for 200 years. I went to Morehouse College. I have family that went to Prairie View A&M and different HBCUs. But just kind of this renaissance that HBCUs are in, the attention, there are millions of dollars being poured into them. And so you see, counselors, you see students and parents who maybe not would have thought as HBCUs as an option, really kind of opening that up. And so just the attention these great institutions are receiving. But then, I think also, there are people who have wanted to more openly educate themselves. Like,
yes.
I did not know this. So, even at Emory University, there are always counselors who come to Emory, but, there have been counselors who say, yeah, I'm also going to visit, Morehouse and Spelman while I'm here, so I can learn a little bit about those institutions, because I have students who are applying and I want to, be better equipped to help them. So the conversations open up. Attention has really been, cast on HBCUs, which is great. But, definitely there's more work to do.
And let me just piggyback on that one point, is that we wrote a chapter in the book that's called The Black Ivies, and we talk about Morehouse, Spelman, and Howard being the most recognizable historically Black college university. It's actually Hillman College, but Hillman College doesn't exist, but I digress. Bottom line is that there are over 100 HBCUs, or right about 100, and we wanted to introduce them to people who don't know. So yes, we may talk about the Black Ivies, Morehouse, Spelman, and Howard, just like there's Harvard, Princeton, and Yale. But then there's many other schools. So you talked about Prairie, you talked about Fisk, talked about Tuskegee and Grambling. So the list went on and on and on about how we as black families, and I went to a predominantly white institution. My children go to predominantly white secondary schools, but they need to be, in their life experiences, educated about the opportunities at HBCUs.
What would you tell maybe a student who is 16, 17, about to have these conversations, or maybe even the parents of a 16, 17-year-old? What advice would you give them? What do you think that is really important as they start that process?
Well, I think one of the things that we really want to push, the process starts early. So we would probably say 12, 13, 14.
Oh, interesting.
To begin these conversations, in middle school, as they go into high school. But, I think we want this process to be personalized. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Somebody went through the process. Oh, I went through the process, so this is what happened. I graduated from college 20 years ago, and a lot has changed. And we're here at NACAC learning about how the evolution, the technology, and all the things that go on into our industry. So we would say the process needs to be personal. What are the needs of the student? What are the resources available to the family? The costs, the money conversation has to start earlier, but
Yes.
you just can't put together a list like, oh, these are the colleges I want to go to without considering costs. Shereem often says there's cost, location, major, and career are the guiding factors. But then I always say there's an X factor, which is some people like food. Some people want to be Division I sports. There are 4,000 college and universities throughout the country, and all of them are unique. So, really kind of learning about these different schools. So make the process personal and not just say, oh, I saw that school on ESPN. Oh, this is on the U.S. News and World Report.
It's rankings.
My parent went to this school. No, let's have a fuller and richer conversation earlier about the process to think about what are the needs of the students. But also we want to emphasize the resources part, because a lot of these families are saying apply to these schools. One of the sessions I sat in today was talk about fit. You can't talk about fit if you're not talking about money, because it could be the best school, but if the money's not right, it's not going to work. So just having those conversations, they need to happen within the walls of the home. They can't, obviously there's going to be a counselor who's going to be involved in the process, but it needs to be personalized to whatever that family unit is.
Do you think that there are certain things that maybe families were afraid to ask that I think people are becoming more open and having more conversations, that maybe we are having more open dialogue back and forth now?
I'll say that I think that the culture fit is being reprioritized. Where will my child be safe physically and emotionally? Of course, that's any parent's desire, but I think we're in this exploratory phase, given the racial reckoning of 2020, that families want to discuss that, right? So I think the shift is much more about, not about where my kid's going to go to school, hopefully to become rich and famous or climb the corporate ladder, but what's going to help them really tap into their best self. And if that's at a HBCU, great. If that's at a PWI, great. But the bottom line is that we're finding that families need the information about admission, but they're opening their eyes much more to what they already knew previously.
I mean, we're seeing the conversations alone. I think we're seeing it's a great first step, but I think books like this, conversations like this, are bringing us even further to really where we should have been a long time ago. But
and it's really about exposure, right? The earlier, that Tim was mentioning earlier, the earlier we can start exposing kids or making them more aware, families more aware of the options that are out there, the better off they're going to be. So the book, again, it's a resource guide. We've listed celebrities and where they went to college. So people say, okay, that's familiar to me. We've given them a timeline for success, what they should be doing at certain periods in high school in order to facilitate the process easier. So we really feel like we put together something comprehensive for parents, of course, students, of course, but also for educators. We're all in this NACAC experience primarily because we're educators. And I want that to be something that resonates as it's shared through the world.
I love that. I love that. The Black Family's Guide to College Admissions. I'm gonna have my Oprah moment one more time. I'll put it up there for you guys. There you go. Where can people go if they are interested in picking up a copy?
You can pick it up on Amazon, of course. Johns Hopkins University Press is also that they are ones who publish it. You can get it there as well, or anywhere where you buy books.
Love it. Thank you guys.
Thank you for having
Tim and
us.
Shereem, thank you so much. Important information out here, and important to have the conversation with your family.
Thank you. We
Thank you
appreciate
for
your
having
time.
us.
Thank you.
All right.